by now you should have received an email from our VP of Product and co-founder, Madura Muskoski, on how to get up and running with Platform 9. And you should have received a URL, a login, and a password. So let's go ahead and click on this link here, and it'll take you directly to the login page. And then we should be able to jump back here. Let's copy our email address. And then our password. And log in. Great. So now that we're logged in here, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to configure networking. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go to the network section here. We'll go to the network configuration, and we need to make a couple selections here. So we need to set up a DNS domain. So I'm going to call this pf9-demo.local. And then we need to set up our DNS forwarders. So I'm going to use Google's public DNS forwarders, 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4. And then we need to set up how we want our networks to work. So I do want to enable VLAN-backed networks to have legacy networks enabled, but I also want to enable VXLAN, and I want to use VXLAN for my tenant networks. Okay, and for tenant networks, you need to specify a range, and you could use up to 16,000 different IP addresses. So I normally go from 50,000 is where I start, and let's go to 60,000. So we could have 10,000 different tenant networks, and that's twice as many VLANs as you can have, so it's a good place to start. And then we need to create a physical network label that we're going to call the VLAN-backed network that we're going to use. So this is to identify the switch domain or something that you are going to be connecting in here, right? So you might have a DMZ network and a production network and a lab network. So maybe you would say, this is my DMZ net. Right, so whatever the physical connection to that BR VLAN that we created in our prerequisites is going to map to. So I'm just going to call this my physical network because I only have one. And let's go ahead and update that. Okay, so that's great. That takes us to where we're ready to add some KVM hosts. Let's go ahead and add our hosts. So what we want to do here is we want to download the installer for our version of Linux. So we did our installation off of CentOS, so let's go ahead and download that. Okay, so now that we've downloaded that to my downloads folder, I'm going to switch over to a console, and we're going to SCP that to the hypervisors. So let's do an SCP downloads for platform 9-installer. And it's going to be my US East KVM1 Red Hat, and we're going to SCP that to 172.23.101.128 and put that in the home directory there. Oops, I got that wrong. Let me fix that. All right. So this is about a 40 meg file or so, so it shouldn't take too terribly long to upload. And then once this is done, I will actually connect to KVM01 and SCP that to the other two machines. That way I'm not pushing this across the WAN. Right, there we go. So that's here now. And let's do an SCP from here to 172.23.101.129. Okay, and 130. Great. So now it's time to do the install. So all we have to do is run the command sudo bash and then the name of that installer. So that's platform 9 install. So it's going to ask us a couple questions. Do we have a proxy to get to the internet? The answer is no. And do we want to install and configure NTP? We've already done that, so we don't need to do that. And so that's it. Let's go ahead and do that on each host. And we can also pass command line options to this as well. So let's do that on the last one. We could do -- no -proxy and -- no -ntp. NTPD. There we go. So doesn't prompt you for that last one. We're in good shape here. We have this host installation succeeded, this host installation succeeded, and this host is about done. So while that's going on, let me go ahead and switch back to the Platform 9 UI. And that one's done. Great. And let's go back to the dashboard. All right, so adding hosts is done. It's time to authorize these hosts. So you can see all three of these hosts have checked in with the control plane here. So let's go ahead and authorize them. So we'll authorize this first host. We'll set up our host here. So for how do we want this to people to access the console? So we'll have them come across the management IP address to access that. What bridge do we want them to use to access the external network? That'll be the external bridge. And then what do we want our tunnel IP to run on? So we'll run that on the 130 interface. And then down below here, we want to set our physical net and map that to our BR-VLAN. We're not going to do containers inside of this. We do support Kubernetes, but for now we're just going to skip their containervisor role. And let's set up our first host as our image library. So again, where do you want the images to be stored, and what IP address do you want users to connect to download and upload images? And we'll skip block storage for now as well. Let's go ahead and authorize this. Okay, and then we're going to authorize the second host as a hypervisor, so basically all the same settings here. This one did not detect the tunnel interface. I'm not sure exactly why. So what we'll do is we'll select this, and we know we set this to 130. And BR-VLAN. So let me go ahead and look at that host just to make sure it's in good shape. So it does have a 130, but maybe the IP address did not get set. So let me do a vi/etsy sysconfig network -scripts ifcfg and bond.130 and 172.23.130.130, and this one should be 130.129. So I messed that up a little bit. And this one is 130.130. Let me make sure I got that right. .130.130. 101.130. There we go. So that's a little bit better. And in order for that change to take effect, let's restart the host agent. So this will re-inventory those adapters. And so I'll authorize the third node in the interim. So let's go ahead and authorize this one here. Choose the management interface, the external bridge, the tunnel interface. We'll enable DHCP. physical net to BR-VLAN. Next. We're not doing a container visor. We're not going to do a second image library, although you can for high availability purposes. And we're not going to do block storage. And let's authorize this last node here. We see both interfaces now, so that's good. So we want 101, BREXT, VLAN 130. We'll also make this one be able to run DHCP instances and BR-VLAN. Great. So all these are running now. They're in a discovery mode, and it looks like this one just completed. So the next thing to do once we're here, if we go back to the dashboard, is to import images, right? So we want to add images here. So we can go ahead and see that we have a few pre-built images here that we can choose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy this pre-built image. And if I go into the command line of that host and I cd/var opt pf9 image library and then data, I can actually wget, and I might not have wget installed. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, -y install wget. Right, didn't have the package installed, so now I do. So now I can wget that CentOS 7 instance or image. So we'll do that one as well as the Ubuntu 14.04. So let me copy the link for that. We'll let this complete. So these are just a couple images that we provide for you to get started. You can always upload your own, and you could use the Glance UI, or you can use or the Glance API, or you can just paste them into that directory there. So we have some instructions on how to do that to add a new image here. You can do that right through here by either putting them in that directory off of this host, or you can use the Glance image create command to create the image here. So it's your choice. So that image should be available in just a few seconds here. There they are. And now you're up and running. At this point, it's time to start creating networks, but you've fully set up your environment. You're ready to go. So the next steps will be creating networks.